This is Taika Waititi from New Zealand, and you're watching The World of Lewis.
And you know, the next thing I know, I was sitting feeding Bubbles bananas, and we had peanuts all over the floor.
That's mad times. The 80s, man. The 80s. That's
you
right.
gotta love it. You gotta love it.
Yeah.
All right, now let's get into it. Before I butcher your name, please explain how to pronounce your name to everyone.
Sure. Think of the word tiger, the animal tiger, and then instead of a G, then you have a K, and then you put an A after the T before the I. So it's like tai curb. Instead of the ER at the end, then you take the E and the R and you take them out and put them in another word that requires an E and an R. Okay. Like the L. You've got the Y and then the two like lines, and then you just like do a little thing across like that and turn them into T's.
So
Waititi. So Taika Waititi.
Taika Waititi.
Yeah.
I did it.
You did it, yeah. That's the one. That's the easy way. That's the easy way to remember how to say my name.
Well, let's talk about the movie Boy. Absolutely loved it. I got to see it. It's opening up in Atlanta this weekend. Great movie. It really, and it's very eerie that it is parallel to my life. Let me explain why. Number one, I had a goat when I was little named Rorge. That's the first one. Whoa. My dad was in a biker gang called the Black Pearls when I was growing up. Now, it gets even better. My dad got locked up and came out of jail, and when he came back, him and his brother, my uncle, took me when I was 6 and was smoking that that stuff in the car with me in it. Well, I'm Boy.
Are we brothers?
I'm Boy.
I'm Boy. No. I'm Boy.
That is the craziest thing. When I was watching this, I'm going, this is my life. This is New Zealand meets America, and you never knew it. So please explain all about Boy and the love of Michael Jackson.
Yeah. Well, I grew up in the 80s in New Zealand in a tiny little town. There's only about 300 people there, so and I'm related to everyone, so it's impossible to find love,
right?
Or legal love. Right. And then, and so I grew up in a small place, and the film is shot in the town I grew up in. It's shot in my grandmother's house that I grew up in with a bunch of kids. And like basically this town is a town run by children. I think Lord of the Flies, but set in New Zealand, but the kids aren't killing each other. And so so it's really like a small town where kids just, you know, in the 80s especially, we just let loose, you know, to control their own destinies.
It's like Children of the Corn.
Yeah, exactly. And so we were Children of the Corn because there's a lot of corn. You saw the maize fields, right? So the cornfields. And so we were like children in the corn,
right?
And that was my upbringing, really. It was, you know, so it was a beautiful time to grow up. And the 80s was a very special time. Like in New Zealand, that was our coming of age decade. You know, that's when we were finding our voice, and we were a very clumsy and sort of awkward nation at the time as well, like a pimply New Zealand, you know, in the 80s. And so and this is a time when, you know, like New Zealand is a very cute place, you know. Like I think our sensibility is very cute, and especially in the 80s. You know, like for instance, we had a commercial once where it was a guy driving a car, and he stops and he gets out of his car and he goes into a store and he comes out of the store and his car's gone, and he's like, "What? Where's my car?" And then the commercial says like, "Don't leave your keys in the car."
Right. That's the whole message.
That's the whole thing. Like, don't be too trusting, you know?
Thank you, New Zealand, right.
Some people might want to take your car without asking. And so, so those were the times when we were like, you know, learning about crime and stuff.
Right.
And so,
and how did you hear about Michael Jackson over...
Everyone knew who he was. I mean, like, you know, growing up, so I'm Māori, so like I grew up in, you know, like in a Māori community, and that's the indigenous people of New Zealand. And, you know, so when you're a kid, you know, you kind of latch on to anyone who's doing well, who's sort of somewhat similar to you. So anyone who was brown or black, you know, we were in love with. And, you know, like for, you know, the first 10 years of my life, I thought Bob Marley was from down the road.
Right.
And so, you know, so like you kind of like just assume everyone is the same. And same with Michael Jackson, you know, I think we all kind of like thought that he was exactly like us. And here's, and the way I always like put it, that why kids loved Michael Jackson. So here was a guy who was earning millions and millions and millions of dollars, and he was spending it on the same stuff that kids would spend it on.
Right.
You know, you're like buying a castle and filling it with zoo animals, and like Pepsi Cola. You had Pepsi Cola on tap. And stuff like that, you know? It makes perfect sense to a kid. So that's why, you know, you fall in love with people like that.
Right.
So so he was the biggest superstar of the 80s. You know, even in New Zealand. And when Thriller dropped in '84. the TV guides that you have, we had two channels in the 80s, TV1 and TV2, and we got our third TV channel in 1993.
Right.
It's 2012, and I think we've got 5. So anyway, we had like a TV guide, and it would say like Coronation Street, the news, and then they would advertise when they were going to play Thriller, because it was such a huge event.
It was like a
big deal. It was like 7:30 to 7:40, Thriller.
Right, right.
And it was like, so everyone would be like, oh, okay, you get home in time to watch Thriller.
I've seen Thriller 10 times.
So was this loosely loosely based on your upbringing with your father and the love and
yeah. I mean, it's loosely based on your childhood. Like what I did was I got someone to research around the world, kids who had interesting upbringings, and then we found you and through Google, and and then we were like looking for we were like the Black Pearls. I'm going to change that to the Crazy Horses, and then and so basically I just ripped off your life, and this is where I'm admitting it. I'm coming out on.
I hope I get residuals.
Yeah, I mean, well, I haven't yet, so I don't fancy your chances just yet. But if the DVD does well, if the DVD doesn't do well, we'll put it out on VHS. I think we should just put it out on VHS, shouldn't we?
Right.
If it's
Well,
an
let's
80s
really
film.
go back to the 80s and put it on beta.
Beta, yeah,
exactly. Laserdisc.
Yeah.